Closing remarks and thank you. First lady, can I use the microphone?
He's quite right that it might be it's unreadable. Can you hear me? Is it working? Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. This report is a culmination of many conversations, of people coming together from vastly different viewpoints, and the expenditure of much technical and emotional effort to investigate a complex problem. Pacific Hydro commissioned this report to better understand the ongoing concerns being raised by 3 families who live near our Cape Bridgewater wind farm. We commissioned an acoustic study, not a scientific study, but a broad technical investigation to see whether any links could be established between certain wind conditions or sound levels at Cape Bridgewater and the concerns of the 6 individuals who participated in the study. Pacific Hydro developed 3 principles which guided the design of the investigation. Firstly, the scope would be as broad as possible so that the selected acoustician would have free rein to research any theory, relationship or data type. Secondly, all of the wind farm's operational data was to be made available for assessment in the investigation without exception. Finally, the process would be conducted with complete transparency, although noting that there are limitations posed by privacy laws. I thank Mr. Cooper for taking on that challenge and spending a great deal of last year measuring, recording, then sifting through enormous volumes of data in search of answers. I sincerely thank the 6 residents involved in the study for opening up their homes to Mr. Cooper and at times Pacific Hydro staff. I would like to acknowledge Senator Madigan, who has taken a personal interest in the issue and supported the study. And I'm also pleased to see the Honourable Dr. Dennis Napthine attending this evening. I would like to thank everyone here tonight. No matter what your view may be, I hope this study demonstrates Pacific Hydro's willingness to work with its local communities and be open and transparent. Everyone here will come away tonight with an interpretation of the report and its findings. You have heard the joint communique from Pacific Hydro and Mr. Cooper read out at the start of this meeting. But I think it is important that Pacific Hydro makes a formal response to the investigation. Firstly, it was not Mr. Cooper's brief to test the compliance of the wind farm against the planning regulations. Pacific Hydro has already demonstrated its compliance to the Victorian authorities, and in our view, there was no value in repeating this exercise. In saying that, we did give Mr. Cooper a copy of the compliance report, and he has not raised any issues with that. Secondly, the investigation is limited to acoustic analysis. There has been no professional health or medical advice sought either in the design of the investigation or in the subsequent analysis. It has been conducted with the single intention of trying to better understand acoustic conditions at the wind farm and whether a link could be established between any such conditions and residents' concerns. Mr. Cooper has delivered a report of considerable volume outlining the steps of his investigation and subsequent analysis and findings of the study. This body of work represents an important part of the continuing efforts to better understand the operation of wind farms in the local environment. When we commissioned this study, we did not know what it might reveal. However, we were always prepared to address any issues that were found to be quite evident or that led to a strong conclusion. In this instance, the acoustic investigation has determined that, based on the data at hand, there was no correlation for noise or vibration with respect to the operation of the wind farm and residents' observations. The study did, however, identify a unique sound signature in the infrasound range by conducting narrowband measurements. This was no surprise to us, as all mechanical machinery produces a unique sound signature. It should be noted that this band of infrasound frequencies is below the accepted audible threshold level that such frequencies are unable to be heard by the human ear. Mr. Cooper's report does state that there is a trend, using the selected sample of data analysed, between the existence of the unique sound signature and the higher severity levels of sensation as recorded by the residents in their observation diaries. The concept of sensation introduced into the study was a term agreed upon between Stephen Cooper and the residents in the study. It is a relatively new concept and has not been assessed as a scientifically robust measure. As was said earlier tonight, both Pacific Hydro and Mr. Cooper agree that the results of the study identify that further study would be required to obtain a rigour that would withstand scientific scrutiny. Such study would go well beyond the scope of work of Mr. Cooper's report. Perhaps Mr. Cooper's report will be an input into the National Health and Medical Research Council's proposed further studies, which have recently been announced. Pacific Hydro has already said that while we acknowledge these preliminary findings, in our view, the results do not demonstrate a strong enough correlation to support the conclusion of a causal link between the infrasound frequencies in existence and residents' observations. The study was not a health or medical study, nor was it a scientific study. The findings are based on a very small and purposely selected sample size and also a limited data set. Accordingly, the report itself concludes that the findings do not justify any change in regulation. Mr. Cooper's report calls for further study into a number of areas. As you may be aware, we have provided the report to relevant federal and Victorian state bodies which take an interest in wind farms and communities, and Pacific Hydro would welcome any further studies by any of these entities or by others. We are also making arrangements to have the report peer reviewed, but as this work is not yet completed, we will advise of progress in due course. We undertake to make public the results of the peer review. As the report indicates, it is beyond the scope of Pacific Hydro to conduct further research or investigations into this matter, and we will now close all complaints that led to the commissioning of the report. We are also satisfied that we have gone as far as we can in attempting to find a pathway to resolving the residents' concerns at the Cape Bridgewater wind farm. This means that we won't be modifying the wind farm operations at Cape Bridgewater, and as a result of feedback received, we will be disbanding the Cape Bridgewater Community Consultative Committee. Finally, there is nothing in this report to justify any form of compensation. The Cape Bridgewater wind farm is a fully compliant wind farm. However, we do not want this to be the end of our engagement with the Cape Bridgewater community. Rather, we hope it is the beginning of a new journey based on transparency and trust. There are two main actions the company will now undertake. Firstly, tomorrow we will be meeting individually with the residents involved in the study to discuss the outcomes in relation to their personal circumstances. Secondly, we are reviewing our community engagement and programs to ensure that continuous improvement is at the heart of our own dealings, both operationally and in the community. And some of you have already had a home visit from us at the first stage of that engagement. So again, I wish to thank everyone involved in this investigation and to thank you for coming here tonight, particularly those who I understand have travelled some distance to be here. I wish everyone a safe travel home, and thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the formalities for tonight. I think perhaps we might just join our hands together for a quick round of applause for Stephen Cooper. Very much to the golf club for hosting us here. A lovely spot, I must say, and to all of you for staying, for listening, for working through this complex material.
Wow.
There are copies of both the Pacific Hydro and the Acoustic Group's joint statement available at the front of the way out if you want to take the one that was read at the start of the night. And also copies of the National Health and Medical Research Council's statement.
Gloves are off now, aren't they? Oh God, they are. I see the bastard in court.